How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brad, the DC Universe Geek, in case you didn't know, and today we're going to be having a look at the Injustice 2 Superman and Batman from HIYA Toys. These guys are 1/18th in scale and super articulated. At least that's what the box says. The box for Superman has the Injustice 2 logo with Superman on the bottom, as you can see, and inside the window you can see the extra head and the extra fists, as well as the stand that Superman comes with. The same can be said about the Batman. You can see an image of the figure down on the bottom there with the Injustice logo, the figure clearly displayed on the inside, along with his grapple gun, the batarangs, and the extra fists that he comes with, as well as the action figure stand. Here's a look at the top of the box for both of them, and also here is a look at the sides of both of the packages. And here's a look at the back of the packaging for both of them, and you can see that you've got images of the figures on the bottom. You've got this little write-up right here, and I quote, "Exquisite Mini is a new stand series for 1/18 super articulation action figures under HIYA Toys." And then you have the Injustice 2 Superman and Batman logos again right here. But now, let's take these guys out of the packaging, starting with Superman. Once you get good old dictator soups out of the package, here's what you get. You get the Superman figure, an extra itty-bitty little Superman head with heat vision eyes, two tiny little extra fists that you would use for replacing the flight hands, and you get this super shiny action figure stand, as well as these two little H-shaped clips for clipping other figures together to make one big long continuous action figure base, making this the sum total of everything that you get in the package. Now let's open up Batman. Out you come. Whoop. And now, with Batman finally released from his packaging, for starters, we get the action figure, which is the main bit. We get two sets of extra hands, three batarangs, his bat grapple, and a shiny action figure stand, with the H's that connect it to the other one. So now that we've got both of these guys out of the packaging, let's take a closer look at each of the figures individually. Starting with Superman, at the feet and going all the way up, you can see that the color tone that they've chose to use for the blue looks about right. It looks pretty much game accurate as far as I'm concerned. And the sculpted detail of this figure, I will say that, looks pretty good for something that's this small. So it definitely has that on its side. I mean, the S-shield has been sculpted on its chest rather than just painted on. So I like it for that reason. However, I'm also not going to lie by telling you that the paint apps on this figure are also satisfactory, because they are not. They definitely could be a lot neater in some places, and I do wish that they had paid more attention to where the paint was going as they were applying it. When it comes to Superman's head sculpt, well, I'm sure that the head sculpt actually looks quite nice before it's painted, but even taking into account that this is a really small head sculpt, it certainly leaves something to be desired in comparison to what we saw shown on the showroom floors of Toy Fair and the Comic-Cons. The cape for this figure is a simple triangular-ish looking sheet of fabric that gets tucked into these little pieces here, over his shoulders, and they've decided to use string right here. It's kind of an odd choice to tie it up right there. Not the choice that I would have made. It's certainly kind of weird, but I can see why they were doing it. They wanted it to look more like it did in the game. The Batman figure up close, in my opinion, is definitely a better figure than the Superman one. Not because I like Batman better. If you know my channel, you know that I'm a bigger Superman fan, but I just feel like the Superman figure is not executed. It is not made quite as well as the Batman one. All the paint apps on the Batman figure seem to be where they're supposed to be. They're not perfect. It's a small figure, so it's hard to get the paint exactly where it's supposed to be. But overall, whether it's the utility belt around his waist with the silverish and gold looking paint, or whether it's the weathering on his suit, or the bat on his chest, or even the paint on his face, I feel like they got the paint pretty much where it's supposed to be, and the sculpting, again, looks pretty good. And yes, I am definitely more happy with the face sculpt of Batman with the paint applications on it than I was with Superman. I feel like the Batman figure is just a better executed figure than the Superman. Okay, hold on. I'm down here in my office editing this video, and listen, pictures don't lie, and I had a chance to see Batman's eyes closer up, and they're all kinds of Cookie Monster. They just look like I want to offer him a plate of cookies and watch him eat the plate too. Even the cape for this figure it's the same thing. It's a triangle sort of dealio, but the way that it attaches around the back of his neck and then into the molded pieces, just like the Superman's, I just feel like it looks better. I just feel like this is a better figure than the Superman so far. Now, as for the posability and articulation of these figures, it is as follows. The head and neck both have articulation by way of ball pegs, and there's actually a pretty good range of motion there from the shoulders up. It seems like the torso is on a ball peg as well as the waist. The arms of these figures actually, and I do want to point out that Batman's pauldrons actually move out of the way, as do Superman's pauldrons up here. They're just rubber. They actually have hinges right here in the armpits. I'm a big fan of the ball hinge swivel. I like that. I'm not as much of a big fan of the ball joint. Then you have rotation here at the elbows that is also purely single jointed, and you can't not quite get it to go 90 degrees without forcing it. If you really push it, you actually can get it to go 90 degrees. And then you've also got wrist rotation and some swivelly movement because it's actually on a ball joint for when you have to change the wrists. The groins of these figures are ball joints, which, if you know me, you know that I actually prefer the ball jointed groin. You've got some articulation up here at the top of the ball. You can see that there. And then you've also got double jointed knees. And I like these double jointed knees. They crunch up quite nicely. And then for the ankles, they're actually on a hinge that is also a pivot. Someone has been paying attention in action figure school. They know that people like the ankle pivot. That is only going to do them favors as far as fans of these figures. Now, even though these figures actually have a pretty decent range of movement, and you can definitely get these guys into some pretty good poses, they definitely have their limitations. The biggest one being that you can't push the arms down really any further than what they're at, because that's just the way they're sculpted. It just is what it is. And for those of you who are fans of a bicep swivel, you won't find that here either, because no, I didn't just forget it, they just don't have one. It rotates here and it rotates here only, but nothing at the bicep. Now, getting into the world of action figure size comparisons, we have the DC Direct Superman, the Mattel Crisis, and the Kenner Superpowers way over here. And then here we have other Injustice Universe Superman figures to compare him to: SH Figuarts, Mattel from Injustice 2, the all die-cast metal one, and then the Mattel Injustice 1 Superman figure. Oh yeah, I've also got this one too, but as you can see, things didn't really turn out very well for him. I have no legs. Seriously, they snapped off at the ball peg. Kind of a fugly looking face to begin with. Looks like someone punched him in his nose and then it never healed right. And then for Batman, here are some other Batman figures. We have the Funko 66 Batman, and then we have the Arkham Batman that Mattel made. I would like to show you this one as well. It's the Crisis Batman, except for his standing ability just sucks. The cape is so back heavy that getting him to stand up without falling over is darn near impossible. Here is how big he is in comparison to this one. Sorry, Batman, I refuse to not let you be part of this video. Ah, crap. And then finally, I have him here standing alongside some other Injustice Universe Batmans. He's so pint-sized and cute in comparison to them. The SH Figuarts version of the Injustice Batman in one of his more armored-up suits of bat armor. And then we have the Mattel version of the Injustice Batman. Injustice version 2 for Mattel. This is the die-cast metal. I say version 2 because this isn't what his suit originally looked like in Injustice 2 either. This is one of the more armored-up versions. Okay, so now that we've looked at these guys under the scrutinizing lens of the action figure review, how is it that I feel about these? Do I feel like these are a product worth recommending, or are they the kind of thing I would say hang back until you can find them on sale? Am I impressed, or aren't I? Well, the answer's not really as simple as that. I have to take into account first my own scale bias, meaning that I don't usually collect 1/18th scale action figures. I usually stick well within the realms of the 6 to 7 inch scale figures. That's more my jam. But I had to get these because I was curious about the actual manufactured quality that HIYA Toys was going to give us with these Injustice 2 action figures. Earlier on in my video, I mentioned how I really did feel like the paint apps could be better on the Superman figure. I wasn't that satisfied with the S, or the painting on his belt, or his face. And that secondary head, really? You trolling, bro? That thing is ugly. And for the record, it looks nothing like what they originally showed us. And yes, as someone who's collected action figures for a very long time, I'm well versed in the facts that often the action figures that we see hit retail, the manufactured retail versions of these figures, often differ in quality and final deco in comparison to the ones that they parade out onto the convention floors, be it a toy convention or San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con. They're often very different. This is because the ones that we see have been painted by the hands of actual artists, people who know their way around a paintbrush and know their way around an action figure. Those are the people that paint these. They're the prototypes. Yet the finished product has been designed and created with money in mind, budget. The final bottom line is how many of these can we pump out of the factory as fast as possible while maintaining a certain standard of quality. Enter these figures that I'm holding in my hands. Anyway, as to that final question that I pose at the end of every video, honestly, can I recommend these action figures to you as a Batman fan, a Superman fan, an Injustice fan, a 1/18th scale collector fan? Yes. They're not great, and I will say that right now. The HIYA Toys Injustice 2 action figures are not perfect by any means. Although they claim to be some kind of new standard in articulation for 1/18th scale action figures, I just don't see it. There's more articulation, but these are not sent to us by the articulation gods. However, for me, you know that articulation is not a huge deal. I'd like to see good articulation, but if the form of the figure is going to be interrupted by the articulation point, I can be definitely more forgiving. But if you're one of those people that is an articulation snob, these might not be for you. However, if you're a Batman, Superman, Injustice 2 fan, and you just have to have every Batman, every Superman, and every Injustice piece of merchandise you can get your little mitts on, then yeah, you might want to pick these up because they're not terrible. Like the video has been kind of saying all along. They're not terrible, but they're not great, but they're not terrible. They're pretty good. That's kind of my final verdict. They're pretty good. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So if you liked this video, found it useful in any way, shape, or form at all, please leave a like on it. And leave anything you have to say down in the comment section below. Like, were you excited about these figures and then you saw my video and then you're like, yeah, nah, I'll pass. Or are you still excited about these figures here? Let me know down below. Also, if you want to see more of my face and a lot of my hands show up in your inbox, hit the red button that says subscribe. And if you do, remember to ding the bell so that you get notified of new videos. And I will see you with the next one. Have an awesome day, super friends, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Take care.